Hello, everybody. So for this week's lab, the lab manual is right here, and you're going to be doing a few different measurements on something called a pendulum. Now, a pendulum is an object that just kind of swings back and forth and back and forth. And how this works physically and the mathematics behind why this works the way it does is kind of unimportant at the moment. You'll learn about that later on. But for right now, we're just using this as a device that we can measure something repeatedly as it happens. So the first activity is going to be making a pendulum. So a couple group members might need to do this, and you're going to make a pendulum by simply taking some object that is relatively heavy. It doesn't have to be extremely heavy, but it has to have some mass to it. And you're going to take that, tie it to a string, and support that string somehow. I'm going to make a video displaying how exactly you might do this, but you don't have to do exactly the same thing I'm going to do. So any sort of pendulum, any sort of back and forth motion will work for this experiment. Once you have that pendulum made, you're going to move on to the actual investigation part of this lab. And how you split up this work is up to you. I recommend that you split your group into two parts, one that will take care of part A and B, or one that will take part A and one that will take part B. So part A is going to be focusing on the effects of taking multiple measurements. So last week, we repeatedly took 5 measurements of a reaction time, right? You're going to continue with that, and you're actually going to take 20 measurements of a pendulum moving back and forth. So you're going to time how long it takes for a pendulum to go one way and then all the way back. And that's the time you're looking for here. That's one oscillation. So you're going to repeatedly make this measurement 20 times, and you're going to calculate standard deviation for different subsections of this data. So you're just going to take the first data point and calculate standard deviation. Then you're going to calculate for the first 2 data points, and then the first 3, and then 4, 5, and then first 10, 15, 20. And you're going to see how standard deviation changes depending on how many of these measurements you wanted to take. And you're going to see how that affects precision and how that affects accuracy. Part B is focusing on, well, what happens if we take longer measurements? Instead of looking at the time it takes for it to go back and forth 1 time, what happens if we look back and forth 2 times? Or if we look back and forth 5 times, 10 times, 15 times. And you're going to be taking these measurements and seeing how standard error is affected by the progressively longer and longer measurements. So you're going to take the standard error for each of these times for a single oscillation. Once you have that done, you're going to take a look at how this affects the uncertainty of these measurements, and you're going to take this knowledge of how to make better and more accurate and more precise measurements, how to decrease your uncertainty. You're going to take this into next week's lab where we'll be working with more pendulum related stuff. All right, so that's all you're going to be doing this week. It's kind of a short lab. It's mostly just focused on the data taking aspect and making precision measurements with that data. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.